Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Positive Health webinar series. And thank you so much for joining today, where we'll be talking about some mind and body practices to help you build resilience during the ups and downs of menopause. My name is Kim Fancher, and I will be your host today. And we here at Positive Health are just so honored to be able to bring experts in to share some really great information on menopause topics like this one that are important to you. I am so happy to introduce Denise Shields, a mindfulness expert, as our presenter today. Denise is a leadership and retirement transition coach with more than 30 years of corporate leadership experience. She holds a PhD in leadership and is both an ICF certified coach and an International Mindfulness Teacher Association certified teacher. Denise joined us here at Positive Health in 2024 to share her expertise in dealing with grief during menopause, and we are so grateful that she has joined us again to talk about this very important topic of mindfulness and resilience during menopause. So thank you so much, Denise, for being part of our Positive Health webinar series, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear more about your career and why mindfulness is so important to you.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm delighted to be here. And I want to welcome all of you to this session on mindfulness habits that help us build resilience. So, we're going to start by talking about resilience and why resilience, how do we get more of it? And then we're going to transition to mindfulness, which is an evidence-based practice that helps us to build resilience. And from there, we're going to explore 5 different practices where you'll have an opportunity to experience a little bit of mindfulness and see how you might apply this in your lives as you're on your menopause journey and dealing with all the changes that go along with that. And then at the end, there'll be an opportunity for questions. So let's start with resilience. Basically, resilience is the ability to bounce back. So it's really about being able to successfully adapt to difficult or challenging life experiences by using our mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility so that we can adjust to internal and external demands. So resilience is something that some of us have more of to begin with, right? It's based on a lot of different factors. It can be based on, to some extent, genetics, personality, as well as the environment that you were raised in. But all that aside, we all have an opportunity to strengthen or build more resilience, which helps us as we navigate our lives through menopause and just through life in general. So there's lots of challenges that occur as we are in the menopausal period, as well as aging as we move beyond that, or really, which is just part of our lives from the time that we're born. So more specifically, during perimenopause and then menopause, mood changes, irritability, brain fog. Many women are experiencing anxiety or depression. And so those are just some of the challenges. Those are some of the physiological challenges that we experience. But then, in addition to that, just through the process of aging, we also find that we begin to lose some flexibility and health, possibly developing health conditions in our lives. Families transition, kids grow up, people die, loved ones, friends. Um, and then at some point, most of us end up retiring from full-time work, which is another big change. Financial challenges can be common for many people. So these are all common challenges, But then, in addition to these challenges, we have life going on around us. So, what's happening in the world around us with the weather and the environment and politics and just the news and the updates. You can see that there's just so many things, so many experiences that we have that can impact our resilience. So, it's so amazing that there's a way that we can actually strengthen our resilience so that we can bounce back and adjust and be able to move forward. So I love this quote. When we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. So being able to increase that capacity helps us not only weather those difficult times, which, unfortunately or not, are just part of being human, but they also help us to more fully appreciate and savor the goodness and the beauty and all of the wonderful things in our lives around us. So, mindfulness, what does this have to do with resilience? So, very simply, mindfulness is just being aware of what's happening in this moment. So, being curious, being open and kind, and not judging whatever your experience is. And we all have the ability to be mindful. It's something that you've no doubt have experienced many times. If you're focused on something and you're really paying attention to it, whether you're reading or writing or watching a sunset, and you're fully there in the experience, you're being mindful. And so increasing our capacity to be mindful helps us to be aware more throughout our day and noticing emotions and thoughts and how they can trigger discomfort and additional thoughts that may not be helpful and behaviors that may not be helpful. And so over the last 20 years, there have been, it's got to be thousands of studies now that have demonstrated the benefits of mindfulness practice. And not only for building resilience, which we're really focusing on today, but for affecting our overall well-being. So you can see the many benefits, including reducing stress, lowering blood pressure, reduces inflammation. It improves our sleep, also reducing anxiety and depression. These are just a few of these benefits. There are a lot more related to improving communication and our interpersonal relationships and just the self-awareness and how we learn to better regulate emotions, which of course leads to greater balance and improves relationships with ourselves and with those around us. So many benefits. So, the 5 practices that we're going to touch on today are, first of all, mindfulness meditation. And this is just simply the practice of paying attention. So, we'll be doing an experience in a few minutes where you'll have an opportunity to focus your attention on the breath, which is a way to build that muscle of attention, focusing on the breath. And then each time when we notice that our mind wanders, which it does, bringing it back to that focus of the breath. And that builds the mindfulness muscle so that as we do this over time, it becomes more automatic. So this will be the first practice that we'll start with. The second one is gratitude. So we are our minds are wired to see what's wrong. We tend to notice like if you walk into a room, I know this happens to me all the time at home. Everything is just how I like it. I like a lot of peace and just tranquility around me. But there's that one thing that's out of place, and that's exactly where the mind goes. This happens when we start to observe our own thoughts and behaviors, where we tend to, just by the nature of how the mind is wired, and this helped us in earlier days because we had to look out for things that could endanger us. But the practice of gratitude helps us to build positive emotions so that we're not always defaulting to that negativity bias and seeing what's wrong. And then the next practice is self-compassion. And self-compassion is just turning that kindness and curiosity toward ourselves. And you'll have an opportunity to practice this as well. And then we'll transition to some of what we think of as the health behaviors, mindful physical activity. And you'll have an opportunity to do a brief walking mindfulness just in place or even sitting. And then finally, we'll touch on mindful eating, just being more aware of what we choose to nourish our bodies and minds with. So let's start with a mindfulness meditation, and this will be just a short practice. I invite you, as long as you're not driving, you want to do this practice while you're seated or standing, or you can be lying down. But I invite you to find a posture that's comfortable, but where you're also able to be alert. So keeping the spine nice and straight, just allowing the shoulders to relax and feeling the feet on the floor if you're sitting, and you can either drop your gaze or close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And beginning by taking a deep inhale. So breathing in through the nose and then exhale through the mouth. And one more deep inhalation and exhale. And now just letting the body breathe as it does naturally, bringing your attention to the breath and noticing where you're sensing the breath. Maybe in the expansion of the chest or abdomen, maybe at the nostrils as the air moves in and out, but just focusing your attention on the breath as the body breathes naturally. And noticing if the mind wanders, which it will. You might notice that you're evaluating the breath. Maybe it's shallow or quick. And if you notice thoughts, then just let them go and returning your attention back to the breath and simply sensing the breath as it enters and leaves the body. This is mindfulness meditation practice. And each time you find your mind wander, You might notice it right away, or sometimes the mind starts thinking about something, planning. Whenever it is, it's okay. Don't judge it. Just simply return your attention back to the breath as you're sitting or standing here, breathing. And so now, as we prepare to conclude this brief mindfulness meditation, go ahead and take another deep breath, breathing in deeply through the nose and exhale. And one more deep inhale and exhale. And then returning your attention to this screen and this presentation. You might just take a moment just to reflect on what was that experience like for you? Were you aware of any shift in your mood, breath? Maybe you were aware of some tension in the body. So that's mindfulness, noticing what's here right now in this moment. Shifting now to gratitude. So you probably are hearing more and more about the benefits of gratitude practice. And again, this is an area where there is increasing research that shows that when we bring our attention to the positive and abundance that we have in our lives, then we're building positive emotions. So positive emotions such as joy and happiness and calm and so as we do that more and more, we begin to train the mind to experience those positive emotions, even in the midst sometimes of challenging external or internal experiences. So it's about recognizing and acknowledging the abundance of good things. And it strengthens, as I mentioned, those positive emotions. And so there's lots of ways to practice gratitude. Each morning, noting, 5 things that you're grateful for, or many people at the end of the day just reflect on what they're grateful for from that day. I know for some people it can be a nice conversation over meals to share what you're grateful for from the day. So those are some ways, but it's really as easy as just remembering to practice gratitude. And so if it's not a practice that you engage in regularly, you need to help your mind out with this. Help out the mind and heart by either creating some reminders. I have little stone hearts all around my house, the crystals and so forth. So here's an example of one. And when I see these as I'm moving through my environment, it's just always that reminder. Some people use Post-its. On the mirror can be a great place to just remind yourself to just feel grateful for whatever may be here right now. So we're going to transition to experience now a brief gratitude practice. And so once again, I invite you just to find a posture that's comfortable, where you can still be alert. So feeling the feet on the floor, dropping your gaze, closing your eyes if that's comfortable. And for this practice, I invite you to bring to mind a favorite place that you have in nature. So whether it's a tree outside your window or in your backyard, or maybe it's a favorite place you like to visit, whether it's the woods or the beach, or maybe it's a favorite place that you've traveled to where the beauty is just awesome. Whatever it is, just bringing to mind now and visualizing this place or tree or living part of the earth. And as you bring this to mind, again, noticing the breath as it enters and leaves the body, just naturally, not trying to change it, but you're sitting here, you're breathing, and you're envisioning this beautiful, beautiful place that you love in nature. And now bringing attention to the heart space and bringing to mind any words that describe what you love about this place in nature. Maybe it's the bird song, or the seagulls, or the wind in the trees, the light on the leaves as they're just gently blowing in the wind. Whatever it is, just noticing what it is that you love about this place in nature. And becoming aware of any sensations in the heart space. You may find you want to place a hand on the heart space, maybe being aware of your heart beating, the life that this earth gives us and supports us with. Maybe there's some warmth or tenderness, but just feeling the full appreciation and gratitude for whatever it is in nature that you so, so appreciate. And then once again, as we prepare to conclude this brief gratitude practice, taking an intentional breath, full breath in and out, and then returning your attention here to our space together. And now just pausing to reflect on where is there an opportunity for you to bring some more gratitude into your day. And thinking of this as a way to build your positive emotion, maybe it's in the midst of experiencing some symptoms, and maybe it's brain fog or just your inability to focus for this particular time. How might you bring in a moment of gratitude just to reset the heart and the mind and support yourself as you're moving throughout your day? So taking a moment, maybe jotting down any ideas that you have. And so now we'll move to self-compassion. And this may be a practice that feels foreign to you. I have to say, when I first started practicing self-compassion many years ago, it felt really, I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but really different. It's like, I don't know what this is. Because it's not a practice that we most of us have learned growing up and through our adult lives. And yet, as women during and after menopause, developing this practice of self-compassion helps to build our resilience. And it's what can help us to adapt to all of the changes that can and will happen in our lives as we continue on our life journeys. So I find it to be one of these must do practices. And I hope that you'll begin to be curious and see how you can bring more of this into your day as well. So it's really about treating ourselves the same way, with the same kindness that we treat, you might think about a friend or a family member when something goes wrong. And even strangers, it's there's evidence that shows that people are kinder to strangers than they are to their own selves. Um, it's about speaking kindly and compassionately to ourselves, and even using compassionate touch, which can involve placing a hand in the heart space. It can involve giving ourselves a hug. It can be just placing our hands around our face, holding our face, much like you would a small child. It can be just touching your arm gently. Just, and I invite you to experiment in a moment when we do this brief practice, but it's about extending the same kindness. And it starts with intention. So it's not something that we can just, I'm going to start being, compassionate and kind to myself today. That doesn't work. But having an intention and actually stating that, writing it down, making a post-it, telling someone that you're going to practice this is a great way to prime the mind to begin offering more kindness to yourself. And so, again, what it does is it helps us to weather the difficult times. So, no doubt you're experiencing the difficult times of menopause, and no doubt you experienced difficult times before this. Just being human, that's just a part of being alive, and there will be difficulties afterwards as well. So, it's one of these practices that again points back to building resilience so that we're not only able to bounce back more quickly, but we can adapt and we can also more fully appreciate those good things when those show up as well. So let's try a brief self-compassion practice. And I invite you, as you engage in this practice, to be curious and just kind of explore for yourself what feels good for you, what feels comfortable in terms of any compassionate touch, but also in terms of any kind words that you offer yourself. So, once again, we're going to start with a brief mindfulness moment. And so, feel your feet on the floor, sitting up nice and straight, but just allowing the shoulders to drop. Dropping your gaze once again, noticing the breath, closing your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And I invite you to bring to mind something that you're experiencing now that's not too intense. Maybe it's a little bit of brain fog. Maybe it's some discomfort in the body. Um, Maybe you're noticing some anxious thoughts. Whatever it is, just bring to mind something that's creating a little bit of discomfort. And now finding a way where you can just experience a little bit of compassionate touch, something that feels comfortable for you, where you're feeling the warmth of your own touch. And I invite you to try out some of the words and phrases that I'm going to offer. And feel free to use these or to create your own. I'm sorry it's hard right now. This isn't any fun. It's going to be okay. You'll get through this. Breathing in the kindness and just experimenting with your own words. We all experience difficulties at time. It's okay. And taking just a moment to savor this kindness, this gentle compassion for yourself, for whatever difficulty you might be experiencing. And then taking a nice deep breath in and exhaling. And another deep breath, opening the eyes. And now just reflecting for a moment on what this experience was like for you, and being curious on how you might bring some self-compassion into your day. For many people, when we become aware of a difficult emotion, whether it's disappointment or irritation, maybe impatience or worry, when you become aware of it, just stopping, taking an intentional breath, and offering some kindness to yourself. Even without the words, just a brief touch can help us reset and benefit from self-compassion, building some positive emotion, which then fuels us to be able to move forward in spite of what we may have experienced. It creates that shift, that mind-body shift. Okay, so let's move ahead now. And now we're going to touch on mindful physical activity. So no doubt you keep hearing again and again and again, thanks to news media and all the health updates and all the attention that this is getting, is the importance of physical activity, critical at every stage of our lives, every stage of our adult lives. Getting in regular physical activity, especially critical as you're navigating your menopause journey and as you continue beyond that. We know that regular physical activity helps us maintain strength, balance, flexibility, and boosts our overall well-being. It can help reduce stress and just so helpful just in terms of that reset. So a physical way to reset. And so it's important to incorporate, I think of it as mindful physical activity in our day. Because if we're not mindful in what we're doing, whether you're playing pickleball or walking or biking, yoga, whatever it is, if we're not mindful, then we run the risk of hurting ourselves, hurting our physical bodies. And it's important to, in the spirit of caring for ourselves and nurturing ourselves, to be mindful. So physical activity is that way to bring more mindfulness into it. And it's a great place to practice mindfulness. And so today, I would like to share with you a brief mindful walking activity. And this is going to be a very abbreviated mindful walking activity. And that I encourage you to either stay seated where you have your feet flat on the floor, or if you're comfortable, you can stand up, keeping the eyes open, but we'll be actually walking in place. And it'll be a brief activity to experience mindfulness as you're moving the body. And then afterwards, we'll talk about how you can do this while you're doing and really engaging in any activity. So before we engage in the activity, a couple of reminders if you begin to experiment with walking mindfully out in nature or in your neighborhood or wherever. And that is, you want to pay attention to your movement. So the physical movement of lifting the feet, swinging the arms, breathing, noticing your surroundings. I always recommend leaving your earbuds at home when you're mindful walking because that's just another distraction. And when we're listening to something, even if it's something amazing like a podcast or music that you love, it's difficult to be mindful to the sensations in the body. And mindfulness is about being aware of your sensations in the moment. So thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. And so you want to pay attention to each breath as it enters and leaves the body, or you can focus on each footstep as it rolls from heel to toe. You might tune into the muscles and the tendons in your feet and legs as you're walking, and any movement in muscles elsewhere in the body, the arms swinging, maybe your head is moving a little bit. And then as you're walking, just like with the mindfulness meditation, when you notice your mind wander, then you want to gently guide your attention back to your breath. So let's go ahead and try this brief practice. So feeling your feet on the floor, nice tall posture, whether you're standing or sitting. Noticing the breath, keeping the eyes open. You can just have a soft downward gaze if that's comfortable for you. If you're standing, though, definitely keep your eyes open. And now just begin lifting one foot and then stepping down in place, and then the other foot. So beginning with the left foot, lift and place. And the right foot, lift and place. And as you do this, noticing the breath, noticing the contact with the floor each time you place the foot back on the floor. You might be aware of the movement in the hips as you're lifting your foot and stepping in place. And simply focusing your attention on the physical sensations of walking. Maybe you're aware of moisture on the bottom of your feet. Any warmth or coolness there. And then coming to rest once again, both feet on the floor. Taking a deep inhalation and then exhale. And then returning your attention back to our space here together. So mindful walking in nature. This is one of my all-time favorites. It's a practice that I've been engaging in for more than 20 years. And what I love about this practice is that it helps me to get my physical activity or a good amount of physical activity in, as well as to practice mindfulness and realize the benefits of being in nature. So I encourage you, if it's something that you've liked to try, um, give it a try. And even if you're not practicing mindfulness for your whole walk, bringing in some mindfulness to your environment and what's around you and noticing helps to build that mindfulness muscle of being in the present moment and also noticing what's here for you in this moment. So just taking a moment now to make any notes on either mental notes or to jot them down. How might you bring mindfulness into your physical activity if you already have a regular routine of physical activity, or to bring more physical activity into your day and couple that with a focus on mindfulness, because then you get even more benefit from the activity. And then the final practice that I'll just touch on briefly, and we won't have an exercise for this one, but this will be something you can practice on your own. Nutrition. So again, like mindful, or rather the importance of physical activity, no doubt you're seeing again and again and again the importance of feeding our bodies with healthy and nutritious food. So mindful eating is about being aware. What am I purchasing? How is that going to nourish my body? What am I purchasing? What am I preparing? What am I consuming? Is all an opportunity to bring more awareness or mindfulness to. And then, of course, ensuring that we're eating, lots of vegetables, fruit, whole grains, lean protein, knowing that these are the foods that sustain us and ultimately will help reduce our risk of chronic diseases. So, the other thing that I'll mention here with mindful eating is just our mindful consumption. So this includes alcohol as well. That's another area that we're seeing more and more of the importance of limiting the amount of alcohol as we see more evidence of how it negatively impacts the body and the mind based on the amount of alcohol. So take a moment now and just make a note. How might you increase your mindfulness on how you're caring for your body? Knowing that this is a very, very central component to overall health and well-being and can make a huge difference during your menopause journey and the hormone changes that you're experiencing as well as you continue to age and maintaining your health. And so now we're going to pause and see if you have any questions that you'd like to for me to address.
Well, thank you, Denise, so much for all that great information. And I know I personally can truly relate to all five of the habits that you went through, and meditation and gratitude and self-compassion, physical activity, and the eating portion as well. But do you have any advice on selecting the habit that's the best fit for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kim, and I appreciate it because it sounds like a lot to do, doesn't it? When you start thinking, oh, I have to be practicing, meditating to increase my focus and so on and so forth. It's a lot to do. So I recommend you start with what you're feeling most curious about. And so for some, it may be, the practice of gratitude. If it's not a practice that you've experienced, there are some immediate rewards, if you will, of practicing gratitude. It's a very much a feel good kind of a practice. And it also includes some mindfulness because we need to bring our attention to what it is that we're feeling grateful for. So gratitude can be a great place to start. I will share that when I kind of set an intention to practice mindfulness, and now it's going on 25 years ago. I could not sit and meditate. I just noticed that I was just too easily distracted. I have a very, very active mind, like I'm sure most of you. And it just, I just had difficulty. And so I would say that if you're interested in practicing mindfulness meditation, check out one of the apps. It's a great way to get some guidance. And when you're having someone facilitate that for you, it's helpful in terms of the reminders to bring your attention back to your object of focus. So there's lots of free apps out there. Just Google, mindfulness apps, and you'll see a plethora of possibilities. But the one that I ended up practicing early on was the mindful walking because I recognize, and I would encourage each of you, what is it that you really enjoy? And for me, I love being in nature. I can remember from the time I was a small child, I loved being out in the woods. So see if you can tap into something you already enjoy, whether it is a social activity. If you're more extroverted, you might find that you like doing something with a friend or, a loved one. Or if you find you're more introverted and you enjoy the solo activities, just do some reflection on what it is that you enjoy and see how you can bring some mindfulness into that. Because then you're getting not only the physical activity benefit, but also the mindfulness. So those are just a couple of ideas, but it's really very personal. And I recommend just trying different ways and see what feels right for you.
Right. You mentioned using apps. I know that there's a lot of great ones out there, and that was another question I had was, do you recommend working with someone one-on-one or in a group to kickstart or getting into the groove, and so that you can make this into a habit that's interwoven into your daily life?
Yeah, great question. For many people, it can be helpful to be part of a community because then you have the benefit and the support from others who are practicing. So you might want to check in your community. There are a lot of community centers that offer mindfulness training. And there is a lot available online too, mindfulness-based stress reduction. So again, a little bit of research, and that's something that you can turn. You'll find that there are lots of ways to do it. For many people, though, practicing by themselves can be a great way to get started. What you might find, though, is it can be uncomfortable because it's unusual for us to really pay that much attention to ourselves, right? And so when you start practicing mindfulness, you start to notice. You're not only practicing the focus, but you start to notice your thoughts. And it's like, oh, I wonder why I'm thinking that, or what's wrong with me? You start to notice that self-judgment, but that's part of the practice. You begin to become more aware of your thoughts, of the emotions. And the beauty in that is as you become more aware, you become more empowered to choose what's going to best serve you. So, both work, Kim, and it's really a matter of, I think, just experimenting.
Mhm. Well, do you think that each of these five habits that you went through today work better during different stages of the menopause journey?
I I would say that now I transitioned through menopause. It's almost 15 years ago now. And I will share that at that time I was practicing mindfulness, but it was mostly again in the physical activity. And so I wouldn't say that one is better than the other because it really depends on where you're at in your journey and your awareness and your just sort of self-awareness. Um, but, the physical activity, because there's so many benefits for that with reducing stress, when we're experiencing anxiety or, with the brain fog where you're not seeing clearly, physical activity and mindfulness can be helpful to kind of redirect. Um, so I really recommend, trying out a couple and see what fits for you. It's not really one or the other. There's benefit, with all of them.
Yeah. How long should you give yourself to determine if a practice is a good one for you?
So to develop a habit, there's some, conflicting evidence on this, but there's still kind of the old standby. It takes, 21 days to develop a habit. You can develop it more quickly than that if you have intention and you have the reminders to do it. Um, and I will say that in terms of developing a new habit, it can be really helpful if you can couple it with something you're already doing. So, for example, if you stretch in the morning regularly, which is a good practice, then when you're stretching, you can bring some mindfulness to that. Um, Try it out. What I hear often is that, you know, people, and when I'm working with women in particular, find that maybe they do it for 3 or 4 or 5 days and then they miss a couple days and they think, oh, I can't do it. And the biggest key here is that you offer yourself some compassion. Just know that nobody can do it.
Yeah.
Nobody can just focus right off the bat because that's not the way our minds are wired. So bringing in the self-compassion at a minimum, bringing in some self-compassion can help you begin to weather the ups and downs of your menopause symptoms, but also just of your practice of your life. So that might be a good place to consider starting. But again, I don't recommend starting something and saying, "Oh, it's not working for me," and then just stop doing it. Just pay attention to where your energy is. Which of these areas seems like, oh, this is what I need, and just do a little self-reflection, maybe a little journaling, whatever's helpful for you to kind of hone in on what does my body need
Right.
right now would be a good way to start.
And you mentioned the self-compassion part, and I'd just like to mention, the importance of that, especially during the menopause journey where, there can be a lot of chaos surrounding us and, our lives are busy, our bodies are changing. There's just a lot going on. And I know, Denise, you talk about this as one of our guests in our podcast series. And I really can relate to that self-compassion piece and giving yourself that hug. You mentioned that as well, every now and then, and being kind to yourself and feeling good. I think that is so, so important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It seems like a small thing, and it, can be hard to remember, but again, create the reminders for yourself and how you'll remember to do that, and then just notice what happens over
Right.
time.
And I know practice daily mindfulness can, lower your stress potentially, not just in the moment, but impact us long term. And I know I like to do mindfulness meditations when I'm experiencing something uncomfortable, a menopause, symptom or something. And I know from my own personal experience, waking up in the middle of the night with a hot flash, and it takes me time to get back to sleep after that. And when I focus on a meditation and my breath and relax my mind and my body, it really, really helps me to get back to that sleep that I desperately need.
Yeah, that's a great practice, Kim. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, the awake time in the middle of the night. It's a
Mhm.
great time to practice mindfulness so that you can calm the mind and get back to sleep, which, yeah, of course, is so important.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for our questions. If you can go on to the next slide. I just want to share some information with our audience and bring some awareness to all of our webinars that we have recorded and available out on YouTube. We do have a Positive Health YouTube channel that you can visit and see all the great topics that we have available there, including the one that Denise did last year on helping manage grief during menopause. And then this one today will be out there shortly as well. So please go out and check that out. And then also we'll have some future webinars coming up here over the next few months. You can go out to our positivehealth.com/webinar site to enroll in those upcoming webinars. And then here, I'd like to present the latest podcast episode that we have with Denise as our guest. And as I mentioned, she talks about self-compassion and exploring how treating yourself with kindness and mindfulness can really help you out during this time. And you can listen to this podcast at your favorite podcast stations here at Amazon, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and also we have it out in our positivehealth.com/podcast website. And then if you are not currently a member of Positive Health, please feel free to join in on our program. We have it free until the end of June. I think here it says June 15th, but it is till the end of that month. And you can take part in our pilot program where we're offering a holistic, one-stop digital health experience supporting your body, your mind, your spirit during the menopause journey. And you can get to that at positivehealth.com/membership. And I believe, Denise, we are wrapped up here for today. And again, I can't thank you enough for joining us here, sharing your expertise, your passion for this topic of mindfulness, and especially building that resilience during this transitional time as many of us are going through menopause in different stages, whether it's, premenopausal or postmenopausal. There's a lot of really great value that is brought to women who are taking in some of these new mindfulness habits that you have shared with us.
Thank you, Kim. Again, I just such a delight to be here and to share with others, and I look forward to just continuing to support women on their journey of menopause with mindfulness down the road. So, thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day.